today, the 7th of November, 2025. I am Cynthia Rutherford, your moderator. To my right is Mr. Vince Roy Jordan, Vice Chairman of the PNCR and Member of Parliament. To his right, we have Mr. Sherrod Duncan, Member of Parliament, and to his right, we have Ms. Dorothy Fernandes, Member of Parliament. Today, the press statement will be read by Mr. Jordan, and I welcome him now to read that.
A Partnership for National Unity Parliamentary Agenda for Transparency and People-Centered Governance in the 13th Parliament. The Partnership for National Unity reaffirms its unwavering commitment to representing the interests of all Guyanese as the 13th Parliament of Guyana begins its work. Guided by direct engagement with citizens and key stakeholders across the country, a Partnership for National Unity has advanced a robust parliamentary agenda aimed at strengthening democracy, ensuring transparency, and protecting the welfare of the people. APNU has submitted an amendment to Section 69 of the Representation of the People Act to fortify the integrity of Guyana's electoral process. The proposed change mandates that every elector present a voter identification card and undergo biometric verification via fingerprint or facial recognition before casting their ballot. This measure will, 1, prevent voter impersonation and electoral fraud, 2, ease the logistical and financial burdens on smaller political parties, and 3, reinforce public confidence in the fairness and credibility of Guyana's elections. The APNU has also tabled an amendment to Section 16 of the Natural Resource Fund Act NRF to ensure that Guyana's oil revenues are used responsibly and transparently. The amendment seeks to 1, restrict withdrawals from the NRF to capital development and disaster relief projects only, 2, reinstate parliamentary control over annual withdrawals, and 3, require mandatory annual reporting to the National Assembly on all NRF finance projects. APNU firmly believes that our natural wealth must build long-term prosperity, not finance short-term political spending. In the interest of transparency, APNU has submitted questions to the government regarding the Guyana Online Academy of Learning goal and its partnership with the International Skill Development Corporation. These inquiries aim to clarify how public funds were utilized, the number of scholarships granted, and what recovery actions are being taken for the misused or unaccounted funds. The poultry sector continues to be adversely affected over several years by inclusion body hepatitis IBH. To understand the situation, determine the response, and achieve enough guidance for our agriculture, business, and tourism sectors, we require statistics by region on the incidence and prevalence of IBH among broiler poultry flocks in Guyana. By production unit size, small, medium, large, and an indication of trends, for example, reduction or increase over the past 12 months. APNU inquired about the specific biosecurity measures are in place by the GLDA and the ministry, and if they have implemented vaccination and disease surveillance measures to contain and reduce IBH. To adequately inform farmers, we seek information about any new or emerging strains of IBH or related viruses that may raise concern for cross-border or regional spread. APNU is asking if there is any proposed target date by which Guyana expects to achieve a return to poultry meat self-sufficiency. Also, what budgetary allocation and support programs have the ministry made available or plans to make available to accelerate the self-sufficiency target? Connected to the issue of production, we sought answers on how the ministry monitoring and enforcing control measures to ensure that unlicensed poultry products do not undermine local production. The APNU has posed critical questions regarding the National Intelligence and Security Agency and its Guyana 150 million equipment procurement. We demand full transparency on tendering procedures, vendor details, and safeguards for citizens' privacy rights. Furthermore, we are pressing for updates on the oversight board provided under the proposed NISA bill, mechanisms for parliamentary review, and actions taken following the October 26 terrorist attack to prevent recurrence and improve interagency coordination. Additionally, we have requested updated data on police strength in regions 7, 8, and 9, training on indigenous and environmental disputes, and safeguards related to AI-driven policing tools. To ensure accountability in public spending, APNU has asked the Minister of Public Works to release the full procurement records of the Inter-Energy Group consultancy awarded through GPL, including tender board minutes, evaluation criteria, and justification for selection. Recognizing the importance of local economic development beyond oil, APNU has sought transparency on the 5 billion community-driven entrepreneurial interventions, including disbursement by region, project outcomes, employment generation, and training results. APNU's parliamentary agenda is rooted in accountability, transparency, and the empowerment of citizens. We will continue to hold to the highest standards of governance and fiscal responsibility because every Guyanese deserves a government that works for them, not against them. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Jordan. At this time, I wish to acknowledge Dr. Terence Campbell, the APNU. Ms. Williams, could you please mute your mic? Thank you. At this point in time, I wish to acknowledge Dr. Terence Campbell, APNU's parliamentary lead, who is joining the press conference today via Zoom. I now invite MP Fernand to make a statement.
Thank you. Heartfelt congratulations to the students of Guyana for their outstanding achievement in securing the highest overall performance in the Caribbean at the 2025 CSEC and CAPE examinations. A special national salute to our top scholars, Mies Boudou of Queen's College, the most outstanding CSEC performer in the Caribbean, and Sarah Khan of Queen's College, the most outstanding CAPE performer in the Caribbean. Your exceptional success inspires us all. Their victory belongs not only to them, but also to the devoted families who supported them and the tireless teachers who guided them. Thank you all for your unwavering commitment to excellence. As we celebrate their success, we must also look to the future. We call on the government to intensify efforts in the hinterland and other rural areas, ensuring that every school receives equitable resources, quality infrastructure, and adequate teachers. By bridging this gap, we can ensure that every child in Guyana, regardless of their location, is afforded the same opportunities for a brighter future, the chance to contribute to our nation's continued excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Fernand. I also wish to acknowledge Comrade Aubrey Norton, who is also joining us online, and he is the APNU chairman. I now open the floor for questions on today's press statement. Please note that Dr. Campbell is available as well to answer questions.
Good morning, everybody. This is Adam Harris. Perhaps didn't see me. Now, I have a couple of questions, but I'll ask one now. This opening of the National Assembly
Mr. Harris, we're not hearing you too well. You're breaking up.
others that I've seen and recorded. And there was no move to appoint an election leader, an opposition leader. I heard the clerk of the National Assembly say that this now is up to the Speaker. Is this natural, or is there a move to delay the appointment of an opposition leader?
Well, Adam, if you follow, and I know you normally do, you will recognize that according to the standing orders and the Constitution, there is no specific timeline with regards to the election of an opposition leader. And so the ball is now in the court of the Speaker of the National Assembly, who is responsible for calling a meeting, being chaired by himself, and having the clerk of the National Assembly present with all opposition members. At that meeting, you will then have an election of the leader of the opposition coming from among any of the opposition members. To say that there is a delay or a push to delay the election of the opposition leader, I would not want to proffer a response on that, more than to say that the Speaker will now have to make that decision as to when the meeting will be held.
Thank you, MP Jordan. We have
Mr.
Adam.
Sorry.
You may go ahead.
Therefore, sorry, can I want to know then, is there a possibility, sorry, that the Speaker decide that there be no privilege for the National Assembly?
Mr. Harris, we didn't hear your question too well. You're breaking up.
I'm sorry. I'm asking, given the power invested in the Speaker, is there a possibility that there could be no opposition leader during this sitting?
You're saying during this sitting or during this session?
Well, this session, sorry, that's what, a 4-year period or something?
A 5-year period.
5-year period, yes.
Right. Well, I would say that following reports from the clerk of the National Assembly and my readings, precedence has been said that the opposition leader was not elected at the first, at the opening, nor at the first or second sitting of Parliament during other sessions. And so one would want to wait and see if it will actually happen at the first sitting, which will happen on a date to be named, or the second, and then we can determine as to whether we will not have an opposition leader probably for this entire session. But again, it is up to the Speaker of the National Assembly.
But the question is, there a possibility?
Well, like I said, at that time, well, of course, we will have to look at political strategies. Win being the persons or the party with the most seats in the opposition, they have already written to the Speaker of the National Assembly. To say if there is a possibility, legal minds will then have to look at how we will approach it, both politically and legally. As a party, we'll have to look at that. But at this point to go down the road to want to preempt what will happen, I don't think it will be in the best interest of the APNU speaking on that at this time.
Adam, could I respond?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, sir. Yes.
I believe that one of the things we should look at is the Constitution. The Constitution provides for an opposition leader. And therefore, to me, it follows logically that there must be an opposition leader. The question of time is to when the opposition leader will actually be elected. I think you should act to the Speaker and the government.
Thank you. We have a question I wish to read. How does the APNU intend to work with WIN representatives since there appears to be some level of rift between the two parties?
Well, I don't know about a rift. We have made it very clear from the outset that we believe an opposition will be useful and effective. However, we do not have the power to determine when we engage. We have tried to engage, and we had hoped that even before the session, there would have been proper engagement so we could work the way forward. At this stage, I cannot say there are such engagements, but the APNU continues to be open. But we want to make it very, very, very clear. We believe we have a competent team, and that team will pursue its parliamentary agenda regardless.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
My question, yes. My question, well, two, but I ask this one first for Mr. Jordan. Now you have tabled a lot of amendments. They make sense, they're very good amendments. But given the governance majority in the National Assembly, what is your expectation of the success of these amendments?
Well, Adam.
The motions, the amendments you did.
Well, what we expect out of this is for the government to look and see the benefits of these motions. Take, for example, the motion with regards to GCOM, the Representation of the People Act that speaks to biometrics and verification. We have been calling since 2021, we have been in the streets and we've been asking that GCOM move to the position of giving to us biometrics and a clean voters list. Every single Guyanese knows that that is the need of Guyanese, and the Election Commission must move towards that. It is now time, after Barrett Jack Joe himself would have called for that after he lost the 2015 elections, it is now time that when we take it to the National Assembly, they see it fit to work together so that we can have legislation that can be able to change the composition and the working of GCOM with regards to the list and with regards to biometrics at the place of poll. Also, it is now for Guyanese to understand whether the government is truly honest when they speak about fair, credible, and just election, because they have been saying that they want fair election. They have been saying that they want credible election. We know that the cry of every single Guyanese and every political party, except for the PPP after elections, is that these elections were not fair. They were not credible. And so at a time as this, I believe that when we take this motion to the National Assembly, it is for the government to see the necessity of the motion. It is the government to understand that this is also needed at the level of the Guyana Elections Commission so as to be able to bring to Guyanese credible elections. And so I believe with that in mind, and for all of Guyana to see, the government will be able to then, or they'll be pushed to join us in having these motions passed. And the same is true for the others. When you look at the Natural Resource Fund Act, we would understand from a political party standpoint that there's an abuse on the revenues coming into the Natural Resource Fund Act. We want to take away from the control of the fund, the political direct control of the government, whereby they decide what, when, and how to spend our monies. And we want an oversight whereby all of Guyana would be satisfied that both government and opposition, the entire legislature, and Guyanese would know and see where our monies are going. And for that, you would also know that the APNU AFC government would have also, that was the beginning of how the act was. We started by saying that we want all the monies to be accounted for. We want Guyana to see and know in a transparent manner how these monies would be spent. We don't want any stronghold of control over the act. And now that Guyanese has been brought up to date with what is happening through Dr. Campbell and others who would have sat on that commission or that board, we intend to put this forward to the government, and we await their response and whether they would support. But we know that it is something that is beneficial to all Guyanese.
And in addition to that, on both issues that Viceroy so ably raised, in terms of GCOM, let us remember it was the observer missions, the international observer missions in particular, that raised a number of issues in their own reporting. I would hazard that it's more than 60 issues collectively, more than 70 that they have raised. Some of them we have raised in the past, and so they agree with the same issues that we agree with in terms of making our electoral systems more robust, and biometrics is just a tip of the iceberg. And we are hoping that through the National Assembly that the PPP can agree that if we are all to be satisfied with the results emanating from GCOM in future elections, the entire complexion not only of the Natural Resource Fund Board and how that fund operates, but also the Elections Commission, there is significant recommendation that GCOM has to undergo significant changes if Guyanese across the political and social divide in this country are to feel comfortable in the future with results that emanate from GCOM. And I want to pick up too on the whole notion of if we're satisfied that the PPP might work along with us. That is just a small part of it. This is the people's house, and we have an onus to show that we are ready on day one to govern this country. And that is why we have a very, very robust parliamentary agenda and work program. And look, we understand that we have other political parties in the House. We submitted close to 40 motions and questions and bills we want to see make the order paper in the near term. But we could have easily submitted 500 and tried to dominate the entire parliamentary agenda. But we're eager to see also what the PPP wants to table. We're eager to see too what WIN wants to table, and also what Forward Guyana movement want to table, because they're part of this, they're part of the stakeholders in the National Assembly. But the people ultimately, we want to be able to show to the people of this country that we understand these issues, and we are willing to move these issues forward in the national interest. I think that is what it's about. The bottom line of it, in the national interest, we believe that every issue that we have submit and will be submitting in the near future and throughout this 13th Parliament are substantive issues that, if given adequate consideration in the National Assembly, can redound to the benefit of all Guyanese.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
It look like I'm gonna get back me alone. This is you're right. peoples in Africa and Region 7.
Mr. Harris, your connection, we can't hear you.
Wow.
You're breaking up.
Wow. Okay, are you hearing me?
Yeah. Better, yes.
All right. This is for Joretta Finance. Joretta, like me, we have deep roots in Barkita and Region 7. What was it that Win did to have such an impact?
You're breaking up once again, Mr. Harris.
I'm going to try to speak slowly.
I'm with you up to what is it that Win did?
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead, yes.
Director, did you hear about it? Mr. Just nod.
I heard up to what is it that Win did? Do you have one on mic in the background? Mr. Harris?
Happy word now?
Mr. Harris, could you take off the volume in the background that you have on? That's the feedback we're getting.
Sorry?
Mr. Harris, we're also getting a feedback from your background. I don't know if a television is on or something.
All right. Is this good enough? Is it better?
It is.
Thank you. I'll go over the question. I was saying that, like me, Joretta has deep roots in Barkita and Region 7. And my question was, what was it, or what does she think it was that Win did to have such an impact in Region 7 during the campaign and the elections?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Harris. And I want to just make it a little bit broader and not only put it to Region 7, but overall the impact that that party had seems to be more of a new kid on the block effect, in which persons saw a lot of underdog kind of reaction to the party. There's a lot of fight that came from the PPP government at the personal level to the leadership of the party, and they had the underdog, new kid on the block effect overall. It's just not in Region 7, but several other regions as well. But we're at the level of the National Assembly right now, and when persons elect persons to represent them, they will have to see how the representation is being made based on their expectations of those persons. So as my colleagues had pointed out earlier in this press conference, we have started our representation. We have a very robust agenda. We intend to go out and represent and show people that we are capable, competent, fit, and ready to represent them at every single level. Our aim is to regain ground in every single region that we have lost, and we will go relentlessly until we achieve our mission of doing that.
Yeah. And Adam,
could I add? I think are you hearing me?
We are,
yes.
yes.
I'm hearing you. Yes, quite clearly.
I think we need to be brutally frank. One of the things that should be stated is that the PPP deliberately impoverished the African Guyanese community and the indigenous communities. I think they did it with the hope that they can use handouts, etc., to achieve their objective. It is very clear that when you use the resources at his disposal, whether legally gotten or gotten, and was able to impact in a way that allowed them to achieve what they would have achieved. I can tell you from my engagement in the community after the election there are persons, including two shepherds, who told you the amount of money they got. In London, there were many persons who told us as well the kind of money they got. They got motorcycle, one chap got a car. And so you had a situation in which bribery became a norm in the last election. And therefore, we as a political party, they have to do two things. Well, one or two things. One, go back on the ground to educate people politically, including against bribery. Two, ensure we can mobilize our war chest. So if the approach doesn't change, we can meet out or the support base and help a lot. Additionally, I would say the fact that the government has removed law and order from the society, and lawlessness has become the order of the day. It has become a norm for people to accept that kind of behavior. And so I would think in large measure, a lot of it has to do with those factors that I would have mentioned. Thank you.
Adam, might I add to, we've spent a lot of time traversing this area with our parliamentary colleague, Rita Finance, and in places like Keiko. I want to pick up on what Mr. Norton said. Keiko, Kaikan, Jawala, Kamarang, there was one consistent message, as the leader said there, is one of impoverishment. Our indigenous brothers and sisters live very impoverished lives in lots of instances, not because of choice. And you heard lots of it coming out during the course of the election, places like Chinowing, for instance, across the hinterland. And that was a consistent message people heard coming out. And as Rita said also, that is what we are bringing to the National Assembly. Solutions, not just observations, not just questions, but we are bringing to bear solutions for our Guyanese brothers and sisters, because we understand these issues. And as Mr. Norton ably said again, that part of it is bringing relief to our indigenous brothers and sisters on the near term. And part of what we even hearing our parliamentary colleagues saying now, that yes, we might have been able to give handouts in the short term, but now we've heard them talk a lot about representation as against, because it is not a sustainable thing long term for individuals. You just don't have it like that. You know, whether you have billions or you have millions or thousands, you just don't have it for a 5-year or 10-year, 20-year period. It's not an indefinite resource one might have. And so it's the funding that you get through the taxes people pay, through the oil wealth and soon gas, that we must bring to bear on the Guyanese people. Another thing that we heard is that while we benefit, like for instance, we heard recently $150,000 being given out as a grant. Our indigenous brothers and sisters say, while that is all well and good on the coast, because of the inflation, because of the cost of living disparity that affects the hinterland in an even deeper way, that we have to rethink all of those things going forward. We were at Mbamadai, for instance, where a bottle of cooking gas is $16,000. In some places, a pound of chicken is $1,000. This is the kind of hardship that our indigenous brothers and sisters live. They live the experience, while we have our own on the coast and closer to the coast. And so having a great appreciation for that now, we have to bring that to bear. And perhaps, as Rita said, it's a new kid on the block syndrome. It's who they perceive had the money to alleviate their sufferings on the short term. But we don't only need short-term fixes. As a party, we believe in long-term fixes as well. And that's why lots of the things we'll be proposing in our parliamentary agenda going forward is structural and systemic changes that are much, much needed.
And I just want to add to what Sherry just went into also, to say that actually changing the way in which persons are living in Guyana, no amount of money being thrown at a few individuals actually changes the the lifestyle of an entire community and uplifts the standard of living of the community. It comes through policy change and policy direction. We have solid policy direction, and we will be guided and we will push forward in the National Assembly, not just based on our experiences in a single region, but collectively in the regions that we visited. We have seen it, and I've said it before, we've heard the stories and listened to the people, and this is when we come forward now at the level of the National Assembly and put the policy direction, because only through change in policy can we actually see change being impacted in these communities. No amount of us going out there with a few handouts and giving some persons a little help here and help there, that does not change the overarching issue. The issue is policy based, and only policy change can fix it. And that is where we're going to go out and push in that direction, so that the indigenous communities, rural communities, all affected Guyanese that needs assistance and alleviation from the hardship they're in will be represented by the APNU in the National Assembly.
Yeah, and allow me, sorry for prolonging this issue, but it's so important to us. So, for instance, if you had a good read of the mid-year report, you will see how housing disproportionately favors those who live on the coast, even though there are lots of challenges is there too. And part of our push will be for adequate housing for our indigenous brothers and sisters in the hinterland. It seems skew the closer you live to the coast. You'll see us focus also on security issue, because that is a major issue, especially in those border towns. So that's another issue we'll be honing in on. We want to secure our indigenous brothers and sisters, their communities and their villages as well. Healthcare is another major issue in the hinterland. The farther out you go, the worse it gets. Infrastructure. There's a school at Joel, I think, being built right now by Sheriff Security that is months behind. Just today, we learned that the government was abandoning the building of a multi-purpose center in Mabaruma, for instance, that would have come to benefit our people. Also at Mabaruma, the Hosororo Secondary School, we highlighted that the further out you go in our indigenous communities, advantage is being taken. And we're going to represent that in the National Assembly. One of the things Jurita has been talking about is healthcare. Another issue is, I think the Amerindian Act needs some work. The land demarcation issues, all of those issues are on the table, because we know how important it is to our people, and especially our indigenous people. And we'll be attacking all of those issues very frontally in the weeks, months, and years ahead in this 13th Parliament.
Additionally, we will pay serious attention to the African Guyanese community and the poor Indians in this country. Sometimes when we talk, we tend to operate as if it is only the African Guyanese and the indigenous. But also, when you visit these communities, you will find a lot of Indo-Guyanese community that are in poverty. There is concentrated wealth in the hands of a few, but poverty across the board. I mean, I can't stop looking at this issue, because I know it will emerge. Every time I drive all the roads I will, and I see that building that is placed in the same part with in the Mocha area. They move all those African Guyanese off of that area under the pretext that it was in the path of the road. It turned out now that it isn't. And when you look right opposite, they have given one of their family friends and favorites permission to build. So there's a big property there, and we need to continue to push for restitution to ensure that those lands are given back to the African Guyanese who they took them away from. When you travel the villages on the East Coast, you also see the neglect of the African Guyanese. And so I think it has to be a broad push against poverty, because in essence what the government has done is to push large sections of the society into poverty as a mechanism for domination and control. And one has to be cognizant of that as we move forward.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Benshaw. Please proceed with your question.
Hi, thank you. But I'm assuming that it's on. The question is that it pays to release announcement about the to have a bank account. And the suspicion of them wanting to in the people's laps again. I want to know the opposition's position on that swar coming from the PDP. The other question that I have.
Mark, you should have water here.
No. Irfan Ali has announced that Guyanese should open a bank account. So in other words, they're about to swar the nation again and drop a little crumbs in those bank accounts. I would like the opposition take on that. And secondly, yesterday's press conference, Jack Dale said that Guyana is becoming somewhat like a Pablo Escobar state. I would like the opposition's position on that. And the third question is about the investigation concerning that, or the investigation concerning the explosion at that gas station. Whether you guys are comfortable with what the police, what they are saying to the general public, and the scaremongering that we're seeing. Every day we're hearing some bomb threat. The bomb threat at the court, the magistrates court in Georgetown. I'd like to ask Mr. Duncan a question as it pertains to, or whether he believes that it has been a misunderstanding about Chucky's bride, the statement about the Chucky's bride. Over the past years, we have seen that Parliament has been brought access also to the law that we see on the P side, that's my opinion. And we have seen candidate position have been attacked by PDP members of Parliament. We have heard that being attacked, and other females being attacked by those individuals on the PDP side. And whether the comment about some Chucky's bride has been some sort of misunderstanding on the part of Mr. Duncan. Thank you, guys.
All right, Matt. Thank you very much for your question. I want to touch on the aspect of the bank account. Yes, we heard Irfan Ali saying that every Guyanese should have a bank account, or they're advised to open bank accounts based on some of the banks going online now, providing the platform that persons can apply, open their bank accounts online. And only yesterday, I think it was, Jagdio came out and he said that it's not a necessity to have bank accounts. But the problem here is not really the bank accounts, Mark, from our view. The problem is the cash grant. We have said during our campaigning that it must be structured. You must know how, you must know when, and you must know the amount of monies that the government would transfer to our citizens. And you don't just come at some time of the year and say that you are going to give to Guyanese, or if they behave themselves, or if they do well, they will get a cash grant. We believe in cash transfers, and we believe that it should be structured. We believe that every single Guyanese must receive from the wealth of this nation, which is in the bounty at this point in time. They must receive a tangible amount so as to be able to take care of themselves, take care of family, household needs, and to take them out of poverty. If you recall, I think it was the IMF and World Bank report would have stated that Guyana is between the range of 40 to 52% of poverty in Guyana. And with the president coming at the end of the year to just say that he will give to Guyanese a cash grant, not stating the amount, he's still to come back and say he will, what amount he will give. Now, it should have been already in place. A decision should have been made. There should have been a structure that the president would come to Guyanese and say, in my campaign promise, I said X, and here is what we are prepared to deliver. And so we would want to ask of the government and press that the government not only give cash transfer as he would have promised, but that coming from in 2026 in the budget, that we see it as a structured measure so that for the entire year and years to come, Guyanese would know how they will receive cash transfer, when they will receive it, and the amount that they will receive. So the whole issue is not the bank account or whether Jack Dio and Ali fighting one another, because we remember last year, one said that you will get it in 1 month, and then the other said instantaneously, and then the other said it will take some time. But what we want from the government, and we want now, is how much will Guyanese receive? And in saying how much they will receive, what period or at what intervals throughout the year would Guyanese receive these cash transfers? And so again, we want to repeat that the coalition believes in cash transfer, and it is a measure or a mean of bettering the lives of our citizens.
Yeah. And let us remember also, it was Vikram Bharat who said that Guyanese don't know how to manage money. And we believe in the better angels of our Guyanese brothers and sisters. And that is one of the reasons why we believe in cash transfers. We also believe that those cash transfers, given the increase in oil and oil revenues in particular, should be up. The government had said $200,000 per individual, and now they're going to families and so on. But we believe that that sum should be up, especially in light of all that we have spoken about. If you look at where inflation is and the cost of living and what people are paying in the market for goods and services, those costings cost should be increased. But one of the big things here too is how the government is using our digital information. It's easy to say get bank accounts. When we signed up for the cash grant, we didn't expect people going to be calling us during the election to find out who you intend to vote for or who you're voting for and all of that. So we're concerned broadly on the use of the information the public is going to be making available to the government. We see there's a big push for a lot of spy equipment to be bought all of a sudden, and there's a big push for AI cameras and so on. And while we believe in the safety and security of our citizens because of the kind of government we have, we are very, 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 very concerned about about digital governance. And you'll see a big push for us on that in the National Assembly in this 13th Parliament. Digital governance and our use of artificial intelligence as another big thing that we'll be focusing on. But we, as part of this structure that we want to see to cash grant and cash transfers, we are also on record in saying that this should be institutionalized. And what best place than through legislation? And we're prepared to hammer this out with the government so that we have that kind of structure. People know when it's coming, and they can plan their lives around that. And so this is what we want for our people. So this kind of adhocracy that the government is famous for, we don't want that at all. We want a very structured approach to cash grants and cash transfers.
I want to point out too that the government is shifting away from the main issue. The main issue here is the eradication of poverty. The government is afraid of this word poverty because a lot of what they are doing, pushes people into poverty. I would only consider the government serious when I see in the budgetary allocations, there is a reallocation of resources in a way that a man in poverty can get out of poverty. You can tell me take out a bank account, but when there's no hope. Where am I getting the money to put in the bank account? Apart from the fact that it is hypocrisy, we consistently argue for cash grants. They said no, we said it's not a grant, it's a transfer. I welcome the fact that they're now using cash transfer rather than cash grant, because since it's our money, they are transferring to us. But the government consistently said no to the use of bank accounts. What they did to ensure people to sign up, in fact, they used as a form of intimidation so that they can get the data on people. And when they got the data, they misused it politically. So that must be established. It must also be established that if you come with the same approach to the budget, in which you put 50 or more percent of the budgetary allocation in infrastructure that goes into the pockets of your family, friends, and favorites, then it makes no sense having an account because the resources will not meet the people they are intended to meet. If when we look at it, it isn't providing housing. They put up billboards all across the country promise deliver. They did not deliver 50,000 house lots. They did not deliver on proper housing. And until we see reallocation of resources that will tackle the issues of poverty, like for instance, transportation for children to go to school, that will impact directly people. If we see budgetary reallocation to ensure that children can get 2 hot meals we proposed on the campaign trail, then we can see reallocation of resources for the people to benefit. And so a lot of this is farcical. It is not an attempt to use the resources of this country to ensure that the people in poverty can be taken out of poverty, unless the government learns to put people first and have a proper program for poverty reduction and ultimately poverty eradication. All of what Antonio Fernandez is saying are cosmetic.
Yeah, and allow us to point out 2 quick things that Mr. Norton touched on. The government did not even believe in cash grants initially. It was the PNCR APNU that was pushing the whole notion of cash grants and cash transfer, and they were definitely not against. They were definitely not for some of the later iterations of it. But in pointing out some of the mismanagement of our money, as Leader Norton said, when you see the trajectory moving in a different direction, then you will see that they mean what they say. We have seen, for instance, in the Auditor General's report, you have over 2-point-something billion spent on pharmaceuticals yet to be delivered. You got 1.4 billion in defective or delayed police station works. You got hundreds of millions in fire service equipment yet to be delivered as well. So it's a lot of missing monies that we intend to scrutinize and get to the bottom. Where's all this money in terms of housing? Mr. Norton said it well there. You hear of all of these land allocations that are being had, and we question that too. In terms of keys in hand for about $80+ billion that the government said is spent on housing from, I think, February of this year to now. You got 200 homes. You got about 9,000 titles that were given out. You got a lot of mismatch. And some of the deeper work in terms of where this money is going and a truer picture of where housing, for instance, is, we want to see in terms of what the banks are doing, what places like the NBS are doing, in terms of who is applying for loans, in terms of loans being granted, who is building homes, homes that have started and have been abandoned for the want of financing. So we're aiming for a truer picture of where housing, for instance, is. But across the board, you can pick any ministry and see a lot of money on paper being spent. But when you look at the returns just aren't there. So as Mr. Norton said, when you start seeing a reallocation of the people's money to the people themselves, then you will get a sense of the real direction that we're heading in as a country. Just wanted to plug that.
Additionally, I want to challenge the government. We have enough resources to give every Guyanese earning under $500,000 a month a free house lot. If you're serious about housing and alleviating poverty, take up the challenge we give on the campaign trail to give every Guyanese low income poor earning Guyanese a free house lot. That will be indicative of the fact that you're willing to serve the people of Guyana.
Correct.
Allow me to just add one aspect of the cash grant coming to bank accounts and the call by Air Canali for bank accounts to be opened. I want to say at this point that when the president of Guyana steps forward and he says and he urges Guyanese to go and open bank accounts, he should also be having a conversation with the banks to make sure that the ease of opening a bank account is addressed and persons do not have to go through all that they have to go through currently to open a bank account. Opening a bank account in Guyana is like we're in 2025 and we're operating under a system from 2010. So we need to get up to speed with that also. So I expect to see the banks having a system in place that is very robust and able to deal with the quantity of persons that will be going into them to open bank accounts with this announcement. And I would also call on the administration to look into areas. For example, we have the township of Mabaruma that does not have one single bank. When we're looking at these things and we want to modernize and go in that direction, which we always support making sure that persons have an easier way to access the cash transfer, we want to make sure also that those things are taken into consideration. There should be incentives given so that we will have soon see a bank in Mabaroom in that township there. So those things have to be looked at as well, and not just coming forward and urging persons to go and open a bank account. We expect to see that policy direction is placed on making sure that that is done and the process becomes easier for Guyanese to access those services as well.
Mark, in addition,
I'm not sure. There were a couple of other questions
Yes.
in regards. So sorry,
I was
as it pertains to the Pablo Escobar concerned by Jack Hill, who has created the atmosphere for Pablo Escobar. That
Let me comment
and
on that.
also the other question pertaining, sorry, Mr. Martin, the other question pertaining to the gas station exclusion, whether the opposition is comfortable, the APNU is comfortable with the explanation given by the Guyana Police Force, and also, the bridal shopping question. Thank you.
All right, let me deal with Pablo Escobar. If there is any government to be blamed for Guyana becoming close to narco state and a transit point for drugs is the People's Progressive Party. Let us look at a few things. When in 1992 the PPP came to power, the undersecretary, I don't know if this is the state, but one of the undersecretaries came to Guyana, and the undersecretary pointed out November 1992, 2 months after the PPP came to power, that Guyana was not a narco state, that drugs wasn't a problem in Guyana, and that can be pulled up from the archives. It is the PPP that unleashed on Guyana a number of things. Let us recall they came to power in 1992 October, and by Easter, Good Friday, 1993, Monica was thrown out of the back of a vehicle. And that became an unsolved murder for years. And then you had a build-up of these unsolved murders. Then you had a link between the PPP and the Phantom Squad and drug lords. Now, this attempt by Barrack to go on as if this thing emerged yesterday is garbage. Under the People's Progressive Party, the Guyanese society at the elitist level became deeply involved in drugs. The state protected drug lords to the point where it became very, very lawless. And if you look at all the persons that have been indicted, convicted for drugs, you see a close link to the People's Progressive Party. Now that the government is attempting to distance itself from Mohammed, what it is trying to do is to create the impression that they are paragons of virtue and were not involved. Guyanese must know that Guyana arrived at this sad state under the People's Progressive Party. And if it is an Escobar type state, then the PPP must accept responsibility for the lawlessness and placing us there.